And let me get PyCharm up and share my screen. Any questions before I start just going over a few things?
I know you've probably gone over this in your past YouTube videos, but with the file handling, what do you mean by having the text file in the same directory? Is
okay.
it?
Yeah. Okay. Here I'm in PyCharm, and this is where all these Python programs are. And if you want to know what directory they're in, you can actually right-click and do Show in Explorer. If you're on a Mac, it would be Show in Finder. And it brings up the directory in Windows those programs are stored in.
Okay.
You want your text files to be in that same directory.
Okay.
So if you're creating the file, it will automatically be there. If you download the file, that file will probably be in your downloads directory, and you'll want to copy it into this same directory.
Okay.
If you don't do that, when you try to run it, let me find one that's got a file here. For example, if I tried to run this one that's going to open the file for reading, if that file name is, or that file is not in the same directory as my program, it won't know where to find it. So I would have to give it the path, the / whatever path.
Okay. Would it give you an error that, or would it just not return anything?
It will give, well, if I do it this way, let me change this from test 3 to test, say, 4, which I don't think will exist. And it's going to give me an error. It says, okay, file not found error.
Okay.
Because it wasn't there. And if the file's there, it was able to read it okay.
What does it mean? Okay. What does it mean if it just isn't giving you anything? It doesn't even give an error.
Ooh. I would have to see the code. If you've got it up, I'll stop sharing my screen and you can share yours.
Okay, I'll show you. I'm not sure if it's, let me see. Because you've got to call it in main, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you see it?
It's starting to come up. It takes it a second or two, but it's starting to come up.
Okay. This is the start of 34, lab 34.
So it's not doing anything yet. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if I've got
first thing. Okay, first thing I see is, and you might scroll on down, but where you've got your main indented, it is probably not calling main. So where you've got your main here is okay, but this one, so probably, and that could be at the end, but that's good there. But probably it wasn't actually calling main because of that.
Oh.
Because main indented, you were saying main was part of main.
Oh, okay.
So there you go. Okay.
So my text file, I've got it here, but that's not right, is it?
No, it needs to be down that one level up. So you've got it one level down on it.
Okay.
So it needs to be in that same one as your programs where it says the lab in docs.
Okay, this one.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. I see.
Okay.
All right. I think if I did that, should.
And once you get that done, if you're still having problems, shoot me an email with the code, or set up and we'll do a private session.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. The final, there'll be somewhere probably 20 to 25 questions on the question part. They'll be similar to the ones on the midterm. If it's 20 questions, you'll have 30 minutes to do that part. If it's 25 questions, you'll have 35 minutes. Then the hands-on part will be 2 hours, and you're going to write 2 programs. The hands-on you don't have to do the questions part and the hands-on part back to back. You could do, say, the questions part Sunday and the hands-on part Monday. But once you start one of those, you have to finish it. I'm going to open it up probably about noon on Wednesday, both of them, and they will run through 11:30 p.m. on noon on Sunday. I think I just said Wednesday. Open them up noon on Sunday. They go through 11:30 p.m. on Wednesday. You only get one attempt on each of those. And I strongly recommend don't wait till 11 o'clock on Wednesday to start it. But you can take them at any time. I'm not doing like some of the your instructors are probably doing and saying, okay, class is at 9 o'clock on Wednesday, so our test is at 9 o'clock on Wednesday. I'm giving you the flexibility. Part of that's because I do have some students that they're still working and their work schedule was changed once school went online, and so they couldn't meet at the regular time anyway. The questions part basically are going to focus on things since the midterm, although you have to know everything in both cases for the whole semester. I won't ask you any questions specifically on a for loop, for example, but maybe you'll need to know how a for loop works to figure out an error that might be in code. I might give you a couple of lines of code and ask what's wrong with it, what the error is, or what it's going to do. Most of it is going to be true, false, and multiple choice, but there will be some short answer. And short answer means if it takes you more than a sentence to do it, you're probably trying to guess at it. The programming part, 2 parts, 2 sections. You'll be presented in each section with 3 programs. You choose one of the 3. So don't do all 3 in each section, just do 1 in each section. One of the sections is going to focus, but that doesn't mean there won't be other things on it. But one of the sections will focus on if structures, if else, if else, nested ifs. So one of the sets of program, or one of that section will focus on ifs. Doesn't mean there won't be loops involved, but that's the focus. The other section is going to focus on while loops. Doesn't mean there's not going to be ifs involved in some of those questions. Once again, you will be presented with 3 programs in that section, and you pick any one of those 3 that it presents you with. So you read down through all 3 and say, oh, I know how to do the second one. That's the one I'm going to do. I don't have a clue how to do the third one, so I'm not even going to attempt that. We had a student about halfway, or not halfway, about 10 minutes to go, I guess, on the midterm, exclaimed when he realized he had just finished 5 programs and only had to do 2 because he didn't read the instructions carefully. There will be some instructions before you start, and I'm actually going to email those out probably Thursday or Friday, so you'll have a chance to read those as well. Basically, part of the instructions are telling you don't cheat. You can use notes. You can look at previous programs. I can't because you're doing it from home and I'm doing the honor system, you can use the internet. But if you find you're having to look too much up and things, you're not going to get finished in time. I don't know if any of you here, Cody came in, any of the teachers you have for other classes, whether it be computer science or others, are requiring you to do the proctored exams. I made the choice that I was going to use the honor system. I know there are about 4 students between my 4 sections that are probably going to try to help each other, but you know, I'm just going to use the honor system on it and hope. I do know some students are really not happy about proctored exams, but that's okay. That I just decided that I was going to trust you folks, and I don't think the 3 of you that are in here are going to have any issues with that. In that second section is going and I don't know which order the sections are, but one of the sections is focusing again on the if else, elifs, and the other on while loops. Some of the programs you might be presented will ask you to use functions. You may, on the question and answer part, get some questions on file handling, but none of the programs will require you to do any file handling, reading or writing files. I decided not to do that since we got that so late. It will not cover the error handling. However, where appropriate, there'll be something in the instructions saying where appropriate, if you do any error handling, that would be bonus extra credit. You will not have to do any of the classes, so there won't be any of the classes we looked at last, I think it was Thursday, on there. So that basically is what you're going to see. There will be some similarity to the programs we did in class. For example, let's say I do a dice roll, and we did a dice roll in class where we generated random numbers between 1 and 6. So there's an example out there in the Zoom somewhere. So maybe I'll give you an 8-sided or a 10-sided die and let you use that instead of a 6-sided. Or I might have you throw 2 dice and do something with them. Maybe there's going to be a guessing game. We did that one assignment that you had the computer generate a random number and then you guessed. There might be something like that on it. So those are the kind of things you may see on it. We had an assignment, I forget what we did in it, but where the user entered something and you basically matched it with something else. I don't know if it was maybe the magnitude of earthquakes. Maybe it was that one or something like that. And they input a magnitude of the earthquake and you told them what kind of earthquake it was.
Oh, was it like the American dollar thing?
Oh yeah, it was the American dollar one. Yeah. So there might be some like that. Those are easier to generate. I could generate musical notes. I could generate earthquake. So maybe I'll do the earthquake one since we did the American dollar already. And you just basically it would be a series of if-elifs in order to do that. So those are the kind of things you could see. You obviously have to know how to format, do inputs and do prints and format prints. I'm not going to ask you to do a for loop as such, but it is possible that there might be a program that a for loop is the way you want to approach it. If it says use a while loop, you certainly use a while loop. But if it doesn't specify what kind of loop and you think a for loop is a better way of tackling it, do a for loop. You need to know, of course, like I say, the ifs, complex ifs, ands, ors. You need to know while loops, functions, and any of the library functions we use, the math library. For the random functions, there are programs that require you to use the random function if you get those and choose those. The rand range and rand int are the two. We're not going to do anything with the random that does floating point numbers. It will just be integer random numbers that you have to worry about. If I give you anything that with angles, remember, if you enter the angle or if the angle is given in degrees, you've got to convert it to radians. So again, those, you may need to be able to use the text processing functions, the strip, L strip, R strip, those functions. For a list, you might need to be able to use the split to take a string or something and split it into a list. So essentially any of those functions that we've talked about. So any questions on what's going to be on the final? Silence, so I guess not. If you come up with questions, you can either email me or you can post them in the forums, and either I'll answer them or somebody else will answer them. So anything you want me to go over?
Could you go over how to iterate through the file one line at a time?
Okay, yeah. Let's see. I've got some files here. Let's see. Okay. Well, here's this read text one. So if I come down here and let's the first thing I need to do is open the file, and there's a couple of ways to open it. Give it a name. I just use FH here for file handle equals open, and the name of the file, which was say read.txt, and I forgot to put it in quotes, comma, and then in quotes, if I'm open for reading, an R. That opens the file for reading, and if I want to go through it one line at a time, I can say for, use a for loop. I can do it with a while loop as well, but for, say, line in FH. So what that's going to do is each time it goes through the loop, it is going to read the next line in that text file. And it knows the line ends because of the new line function. And I'm just going to print that line in this case. And so when it prints the line, here was the text file. This is a line, longer line. I can read lines. So each time it went through the for loop, it read a line. And then in this case, and it read the next line, put it in the variable I called line. And in this case, all I did was print it. It has these extra blank lines in the output because at the end of the file, or end of each of those lines, is a new line. If you don't want that extra line, I could say line is equal to line dot strip. And that will get rid of any blank lines at the beginning or end of the line, and that includes that new line character. And so now you've not got the extra line in it.
Okay. So how would you call that in main if that was in its own function?
So I wanted to create a function. So we've got this one. We want to take it and we want to create a function from it for it. If I want to create a function to open it, I can refactor this and I could say define f underscore open. And let's even go one step further. Let's say I'm going to pass it the name of the file. So file name. And then I would say the file handle equals open here. And it would be file name, comment. Again, I'm opening it for reading. Notice no quotes because when I call it in main, which we're going to do in a minute, when I call it in main, it is going to return the file handle. And so here, I could say fname equals read.txt. And when I call the function, which I called f underscore open, and I pass it fname. So what it's going to do is it's going to call this function. It's going to pass it the name of the file. In the function, it's going to open it and return the file handle.
Okay.
Okay. So you see that much?
Yeah.
Okay. And if we could create another function here, maybe. Of course, with this, it's a little simple, but maybe I'll create a function called clean line, and I'm going to pass it a line. Again, the variables don't have to be the same name. I'm going to pass it a line, and in the line, I'm just going to say that line is equal to strip the line, and then return it. And so here, instead of saying line equals line strip, I would say it's clean line. But I need to pass, and I pass it the line. So this time, it's going to clean up the line by coming down here, and in this case, just stripping off white space. Let me go and, well, let's see how this one works first. And let's see. Oh, duh. calling clean line. It's line.strip. Open, close parentheses. So get the syntax right. And that one does the same thing. I pass it the line and it does the strip on it. Let's say we're going to do a little bit more, and I'm going to change the data a little bit. So I want to get rid of lines that have quotes at the beginning and end. So if I run this same program right now, I get my pause that happens occasionally because of the recording. There we go. And notice the quotes are still there. So I could do other cleanup here. And if I wanted to strip off double quotes, I put the double quotes in the parentheses. And come on. I forgot to reboot the system before class, and so it's still running without anything buffered and going, and so it's running a little slow. There we go. And you can see here, I could have this cleanup function that did whatever I needed to clean by passing it the line. Does that help on how functions work?
Yeah.
Okay. The one thing I didn't do on these is here in main, the last thing I should have in main is a close. Because I was opening it for reading, it's not really important. But when you open a file for write, you do want to close the file because if you don't, then you're probably going to get into trouble. So if you don't close the file, you're probably going to get you could get into trouble. Now, 9 times out of 10, it's going to close the file properly, but that 10th time is when you get into trouble.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So does that answer your questions and clean it up?
That helps.
Good.
Thank you.
Good. Other questions? Okay. Some of you may show up tomorrow, but we're going to really be doing basically the same thing in tomorrow's for anybody's there, just reviewing if you got any questions. Again, send me an email or post them in the discussion forums. If there is if you need between now and Sunday to go over anything, let me know, and I can we can do a private Zoom session between any of you. I've missed seeing you guys for the last 7 weeks, but I know you've not missed seeing me, but hopefully in the fall things will be back to normal, and if there's no other questions, we'll go ahead and end. Okay, we'll see you guys.
Well, I will say, ever since the coronavirus lockdown, there are times where I felt like I've lost my sanity.
Yeah, a few people in that one survey said that they were having a hard time, and I hope they took some of the suggestions on the counseling and all the school has. And if you need that stuff's available. If any of you need it, if you just want to rant or anything, let me know, and I will set up a Zoom session one-on-one with me, and you can just rant all you want. My Active Directory class last Thursday night, basically, after we finished what we were going to do, we spent almost 45 minutes just sitting in the groups talking about this, that, and the other, because yeah, they're not used to being alone. Even though I wasn't alone, for me, maybe living on a submarine helped. Yeah, there was another 140 guys on the submarine, but still, you couldn't go out side of that 420 foot and 30 long and 35 foot wide area. So being locked down there, maybe that may have helped me. I think I'm doing pretty good, but again, if you have any, if you just need a rant or anything, I'll be happy to listen. All right.